The wallet lay on the rain-soaked sidewalk, expensive black leather glistening under the morning light. Emma Carter almost stepped right over it, her mind preoccupied with the 3 job rejections she'd received that week and the mounting pile of bills waiting at her apartment. At 21, Emma's shoulders already carried the weight of responsibilities far beyond her years. Her faded jeans and twice-mended coat spoke of someone who counted every penny, who knew the precise cost of bus fare across town and could stretch a package of ramen into 2 meals. She stooped to pick up the wallet, glancing around to see if anyone had dropped it recently. The busy Manhattan street was packed with Monday morning commuters, all moving with that determined New York stride that suggested stopping was a crime. No one looked back. No one was searching the ground in panic. Rain began to fall harder, and Emma tucked the wallet into her jacket, hurrying toward the shelter of a nearby coffee shop awning. Once protected from the downpour, she carefully opened the leather bifold. The first thing she noticed was the quality. This wasn't department store merchandise, but something handcrafted, with precise stitching and butter-soft leather that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Inside, a driver's license photo showed a stern-faced man with intense grey eyes and dark hair touched with silver at the temples, Alexander Reed. The address listed was for a penthouse in one of those gleaming downtown skyscrapers where Emma had never set foot. Behind the license was a platinum credit card, and behind that cash. A lot of cash. Emma's fingers trembled as she counted. $2,000 in crisp $100 bills. $2,000 that could pay her overdue rent, buy groceries for months, or help with her mother's medical bills back in Ohio. No one would know. Emma pushed the thought away immediately, disappointed in herself for even considering it. Her mother had raised her better than that, had worked double shifts as a nurse's aide for years until her health gave out, all while teaching Emma that character wasn't what you did when people were watching, it was what you did when they weren't. She tucked the wallet back into her jacket and pulled out her phone, a second-hand model with a cracked screen. A quick search for Alexander Reed, New York, yielded immediate results. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the images. The stern face from the license appeared in Forbes articles and business news features. Alexander Reed, 42, CEO of Reed Innovations. Estimated net worth, $4.3 billion. Emma almost dropped her phone. The man could probably lose $2,000 daily and never notice. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't about what he could afford to lose. It was about who she was determined to be, despite everything life had thrown at her. The address on the license matched the Reed Innovations headquarters, just 3 blocks away. Emma checked the time on her phone and bit her lip. She had a job interview at a diner in an hour, her 4th interview this week, and possibly her last chance before next month's rent came due. But that was enough time to return the wallet first. The Reed Innovations building stretched toward the clouds, all gleaming glass and steel. Emma felt immediately out of place as she approached the revolving doors, painfully aware of her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor of the lobby. A sleek reception desk was staffed by 2 immaculately dressed women who looked like they had stepped out of fashion magazines. "Can I help you?" The blonde receptionist's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she assessed Emma's appearance. "I found this wallet," Emma said, pulling it from her jacket. "The ID says it belongs to Alexander Reed. I wanted to return it." The receptionist's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "Mr. Reed's wallet?" She reached for it, but Emma hesitated. "Could I possibly return it to him personally, just to make sure it gets back to him safely?" The receptionist exchanged glances with her colleague, barely concealing her amusement. "Mr. Reed is an extremely busy man. He doesn't meet with people without appointments, especially not—" She paused, eyes flicking over Emma's worn clothes. "Especially not people like me," Emma finished, a flush creeping up her neck. "I understand, but I found $2,000 in this wallet, and I'd like Mr. Reed to know it's all still there." The second receptionist, who had been listening to the exchange, picked up her phone and murmured something into it, her eyes never leaving Emma. After a brief conversation, she turned to Emma with a look of surprise. "Take the elevator to the top floor. Ms. Winters, Mr. Reed's assistant, will meet you." Emma's heart raced as the elevator climbed, numbers flashing above the door. 45, 46, 47, all the way to 60. When the doors slid open, she stepped into an elegant waiting area where a sharp-featured woman in a tailored suit stood with perfect posture, hands clasped before her. "I'm Patricia Winters, Mr. Reed's executive assistant. You found his wallet?" Her tone was professional but skeptical, as if people regularly attempted to meet her boss through elaborate schemes. Yes, on the sidewalk a few blocks from here. Emma handed over the wallet, feeling strangely reluctant to part with it. Everything's still inside. Ms. Winters opened the wallet and methodically checked its contents, her expression unreadable. Indeed, $2,000 in cash, cards, ID, all present. Not everyone would have returned this intact, if at all. It was the right thing to do, Emma said simply. Ms. Winters studied her for a moment. What's your name? Emma Carter. And what do you do, Miss Carter? Emma shifted uncomfortably. Currently, I'm between jobs. Actually, I have an interview in... She checked her phone. 30 minutes, so I should probably go. Wait here, please. Ms. Winters disappeared through a set of imposing double doors, taking the wallet with her. Emma stood awkwardly in the waiting area, feeling increasingly out of place among the expensive furnishings and artwork that probably cost more than her entire life's earnings so far. 5 minutes passed, then 10. She began to worry about missing her interview. Just as she was considering leaving, Ms. Winters returned. Mr. Reed would like to thank you personally. Before Emma could respond, the assistant gestured toward the double doors, which now stood open. With a deep breath, Emma walked into one of the largest offices she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the rain now falling in sheets against the glass. At the far end, behind a desk that seemed carved from a single slab of dark wood, sat Alexander Reed. In person, he was more imposing than his license photo suggested. Tall and broad-shouldered, with that same stern expression and penetrating grey eyes. He stood as she entered, and Emma was struck by how he seemed to command the very air in the room. Ms. Carter, I understand I have you to thank for the return of my wallet. His voice was deep and measured, with the confidence of someone accustomed to being heard the first time he spoke. Emma noticed that the wallet sat open on his desk, the cash fanned out beside it. Anyone would have done the same, she said, though they both knew that wasn't true. I very much doubt that. His gaze was analytical, as if she were a puzzle he was trying to solve. Most people finding a wallet with this much cash and a billionaire's ID would have considered it their lucky day. Emma stood a little straighter. I'm not most people, Mr. Reed. For the first time, something like a smile touched his lips. No, I don't believe you are. Alexander Reed gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please, sit. I'd like to speak with you for a moment. Emma glanced anxiously at her phone. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Reed, but I have a job interview across town in 20 minutes, and I really can't afford to miss it. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, that someone would turn down an invitation from him. I see. Where is this interview? The Bluebird Diner on 28th Street, for a waitress position. Reed pressed an intercom button on his desk. Patricia, call the Bluebird Diner on 28th. Inform them Ms. Carter will be delayed due to a meeting with me. Reschedule her interview for later today. He looked at Emma. Will that suffice? Before she could respond, his assistant's voice came through the speaker. Yes, Mr. Reed. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her worn sneakers. She wasn't used to having decisions made for her, especially by strangers, no matter how wealthy they might be. Yet she couldn't deny her curiosity about why this billionaire wanted to talk with her. You're very confident they'll accommodate your request, she noted. Reed's expression remained impassive. People generally do. He settled back in his chair, studying her with that same analytical gaze. Tell me about yourself, Miss Carter. There's not much to tell. Emma's hands twisted in her lap. I'm from a small town in Ohio, moved to New York almost a year ago. Family, my mother. She's back in Ohio. She was a nurse's aide until she got sick. Emma didn't elaborate on how her mother's illness had drained their modest savings, or how the mounting medical bills had forced Emma to drop out of community college to work full-time. Reed nodded, as if confirming something to himself. And what brought you to New York? It's an expensive city for someone without connections or a degree. The question stung, though Emma knew it wasn't intended maliciously. It was just a fact, one she confronted daily as she struggled to make ends meet. I had dreams of becoming a photographer, she admitted. I've always had an eye for composition, or at least that's what my high school art teacher said. For the first time, genuine interest flickered across Reed's face. Photography? Do you have a portfolio? Emma laughed softly, the sound tinged with resignation. Not anymore. I sold my camera 6 months ago to help with rent. Now I just use my phone sometimes when the screen isn't too cracked to see properly. Reed's eyes narrowed slightly, and Emma immediately regretted the comment. The last thing she wanted was this man's pity. She straightened her shoulders and changed the subject. "Mr. Reed, I appreciate you wanting to thank me, but returning your wallet was simply the right thing to do. I don't expect anything for it." "And that," Reed said, leaning forward, "is precisely why it interests me so much." He stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the rain-drenched city. "Do you know what I've learned in 20 years of business, Ms. Carter?" Emma shook her head, though he wasn't looking at her. "That most people have a price. That integrity is often situational rather than fundamental." He turned to face her. "Yet here you are, clearly in financial need, returning a wallet containing enough cash to solve your immediate problems, expecting nothing in return." His gaze was so intense that Emma had to resist the urge to look away. "As I said, my mother raised me to do the right thing." "Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman." "She is." An uncomfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Emma was acutely aware of every second ticking by, of the vast gulf between their circumstances. What was she even doing here, in this office 60 stories above the city, with a man whose watch probably cost more than she'd earn in years? Reed seemed to make a decision. He returned to his desk and sat down. "Ms. Carter, I'd like to offer you a job." Emma blinked in surprise. "A job? Doing what exactly?" "I need a personal assistant, someone honest, someone who demonstrates integrity even when no one is watching." He nodded toward the wallet still lying open on his desk. "You've rather convincingly demonstrated those qualities." Emma frowned slightly. "With all due respect, Mr. Reed, I don't have the qualifications to be anyone's assistant, let alone yours. I haven't even finished my associate's degree." "Credentials can be acquired, character cannot." Reed's tone was matter-of-fact. "The position pays $90,000 a year to start, with benefits and performance bonuses. Patricia can train you on the specifics." Emma's mind reeled at the figure. It was more money than she'd ever imagined earning, more than enough to help her mother get better treatment, to finally have some security. But something about the offer didn't sit right. "Why me?" she asked bluntly. "There must be hundreds of qualified candidates who would jump at this opportunity. Why offer it to a complete stranger who happened to find your wallet?" A hint of a smile played at the corners of Reed's mouth. "Perhaps I trust my instincts. They've served me well in business." Emma hesitated, her practical side warring with her suspicion. "This seems too good to be true, Mr. Reed. I can't help but wonder if there's more to this offer than you're saying." For the first time, Reed looked genuinely surprised, then amused. Most people would have accepted immediately. "I've already established I'm not most people," Emma replied, with more confidence than she felt. Reed laughed then, a genuine sound that transformed his stern features momentarily. "Indeed you have, Miss Carter." He considered her for a moment. "What if I told you the wallet wasn't lost accidentally?" Emma's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if finding my wallet was a test, one that dozens of people failed before you came along?" The implications sank in slowly. "You're saying you deliberately left your wallet on the sidewalk with $2,000 in it, just to see if someone would return it?" Reed nodded, his expression returning to its usual impassive state. "I've been disappointed by people I thought I could trust recently. I wanted to see if honesty still existed in this city." "That's—" Emma struggled to find the right word. "That's manipulative." "I prefer instructive," Reed countered. "And effective. It brought you here after all." Emma stood, suddenly angry. "I'm not a lab rat in one of your experiments, Mr. Reed. You didn't have to test me or anyone else like that. What about the people who really needed that money? Maybe they took it not because they're dishonest, but because they were desperate." Reed's eyes widened slightly at her outburst. He clearly wasn't accustomed to being challenged. "You needed the money too, Miss Carter, yet you returned it. That doesn't make me better than them, just luckier maybe, lucky enough to have been taught certain principles." She reached for her worn jacket, draped over the back of the chair. "Thank you for the job offer, but I don't think I'd be comfortable working for someone who tests people without their knowledge or consent." As she turned to leave, Reed's voice stopped her. "Wait." There was something different in his tone, less commanding, more uncertain. "You're right, it was manipulative. I've become accustomed to viewing people as assets or liabilities. It's an occupational hazard in my position." Emma turned back to face him, unsure what to say. "The job offer stands," Reed continued, "but not because you passed some test, because you just did something even more unusual than returning a wallet full of cash. You told a billionaire he was wrong to his face." For the second time, a genuine smile transformed his features. That kind of honesty is even rarer than integrity, Miss Carter. Emma hesitated, her hand still clutching her jacket. The practical part of her screamed to accept the offer, to think of her mother's medical bills and her own precarious finances. But another part, the part that had driven her to New York with a second-hand camera and big dreams, wondered if she would be compromising something essential about herself. "I need to think about it," she said finally. Reed nodded, looking almost respectful. "Of course, take the day. Patricia will give you my direct number before you leave." He paused, then added, "And regardless of your decision, I'd like to help you resume your photography. Consider it a thank you for returning my wallet and for your honesty just now." Emma left the Reed Innovations building in a daze. Patricia Winter's business card clutched in her hand, with Alexander Reed's direct number written on the back in precise penmanship. The rain had stopped, but the city glistened under a metallic grey sky that matched Reed's penetrating eyes. The Bluebird Diner had indeed rescheduled her interview for the following day at 10. Apparently, when Alexander Reed called, people listened. Emma found herself walking aimlessly through the crowded Manhattan streets, her mind replaying the surreal conversation. $90,000 a year, benefits, the chance to escape the constant anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck. It seemed like the answer to her prayers, handed to her because she'd done what anyone should do, return a lost wallet. Yet something nagged at her. The manipulation, the test, the idea that Reed saw people as assets or liabilities. Could she work closely with someone like that? Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen, despite its spiderweb of cracks, displayed her mother's name. She ducked into the relative quiet of a small park and answered. "Hi, Mom," she said, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. "Emma, honey?" Her mother's voice sounded weaker than the last time they'd spoken. "How did the interviews go this week?" Emma hesitated. She'd never been able to lie to her mother. 3 rejections so far. 1 more tomorrow at the Bluebird Diner. "Oh, sweetheart." Her mother's disappointment was palpable even through the phone. "I'm sure something will turn up soon." "Actually," Emma began, then stopped. How could she explain what had just happened? It sounded absurd even to her. There might be another opportunity, something unexpected. That's wonderful. What kind of job? An executive assistant position for the CEO of a major company. Emma sat on a damp bench, watching office workers hurry past with steaming coffee cups and determined expressions. "Emma, that's amazing. How did you manage that? I thought you were applying for service industry jobs." "It's complicated," Emma sighed. "Mom, how are you feeling? Honestly?" A pause. Too long a pause. "I'm managing, sweetheart. The new medication helps with the pain most days." Translation: the pain was constant, but sometimes marginally less unbearable. Emma closed her eyes briefly. Her mother needed better care than what their limited insurance provided. Care that Emma could afford if she took Reed's offer. "Listen, Mum, I might have some good news soon, about being able to help with your medical bills." "Emma Carter, don't you worry about me. I want you focusing on building your own life, not taking care of your old mother." "You're not old, Mom, and we take care of each other. That's what family does." After promising to call again soon, Emma ended the call and stared at the phone in her hand. The decision that had seemed so complicated minutes ago suddenly crystallized with painful clarity. Pride wouldn't pay her mother's medical bills. Principals wouldn't keep the electricity on in her apartment. She pulled out Patricia Winter's card and dialed the number on the back. Reed answered on the second ring. "Ms. Carter." "That was quicker than I expected." "I'll take the job," Emma said simply. "Excellent." He sounded genuinely pleased. "Can you start tomorrow? Patricia will handle the paperwork and show you the ropes." "Tomorrow?" Emma hadn't expected things to move so quickly. "Yes, I suppose I can." "Good. 8 a.m. sharp." He paused. "And Ms. Carter, I meant what I said about your photography. We'll discuss that further tomorrow." The line went dead before Emma could respond. The next morning found Emma standing outside the Reed Innovations building at 7:45, dressed in the nicest outfit she owned, a simple black dress she'd bought second-hand for job interviews, paired with sensible flats. She'd spent half the night alternating between excitement and anxiety, wondering if she'd made the right choice. Patricia Winters was waiting in the lobby, her expression as coolly professional as it had been the day before. She handed Emma a temporary security badge. "Welcome to Reed Innovations, Ms. Carter. We'll begin with the employment paperwork. then move on to your orientation. The morning passed in a blur of forms, handbooks, and introductions. The Reed Innovations headquarters housed over 500 employees across 60 floors, and Patricia seemed determined that Emma should understand the structure of the entire organization by lunchtime. By noon, Emma's head was swimming with names, titles, and protocols. Mr. Reed is currently in a board meeting, Patricia explained as she led Emma to a small office adjacent to Reed's. This will be your workspace. You'll manage his schedule, coordinate his meetings, handle his correspondence, and generally ensure his workday proceeds without unnecessary interruptions. The office, though small, was elegant and tastefully furnished with a sleek desk, ergonomic chair, and state-of-the-art computer. A large window offered a view similar to the one from Reed's office, though not quite as panoramic. "This is mine?" Emma asked, running a hand along the polished desktop. "For as long as you work here," Patricia confirmed. "Now, let's discuss Mr. Reed's preferences." What followed was an exhaustive list of Alexander Reed's likes, dislikes, habits, and expectations. He preferred his coffee black, took lunch at precisely 1 p.m. unless in meetings, never scheduled calls before 9 a.m. or after 6 p.m., and expected briefings on all meetings to be prepared 24 hours in advance. "He's quite particular," Patricia concluded, "but fair. He rewards competence and loyalty generously." "How long have you worked for him?" Emma asked. 15 years, since he founded the company. Something like pride tinged Patricia's voice. "I've seen Reed Innovations grow from a startup with 10 employees to what it is today." She checked her watch. "Mr. Reed's meeting should be finishing now. He wanted to see you after lunch." At precisely 2 p.m., Emma was ushered into Reed's office. He sat behind his massive desk, reviewing documents, and motioned for her to sit without looking up. "One moment, Miss Carter." Emma waited, taking the opportunity to observe him in his natural environment. There was something almost mechanical about his efficiency, the way his eyes scanned documents, and his hand moved to sign or mark them. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Finally, he set aside the papers and looked up at her. "How was your morning?" "Informative," Emma replied honestly. "Ms. Winters is very thorough." Reed nodded, as if this was expected. "Patricia has been invaluable to me. You'd do well to learn everything you can from her." He leaned back in his chair. "Now to the matter of your photography." From a drawer in his desk, he withdrew a rectangular box and slid it across to her. "Open it." Emma did, her eyes widening as she revealed a top-of-the-line digital camera, the kind professional photographers used, the kind she'd only ever dreamed of owning. "Mr. Reed, I can't accept this. It's too expensive." "It's a business expense," he said dismissively. "Part of your job will be documenting certain company events and projects." "Patricia mentioned you'd need the appropriate equipment." Emma looked up sharply. She'd said nothing to Patricia about photography. "I don't understand." Reed's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held that analytical gleam. "Did you think I wouldn't research you after our meeting yesterday?" Emma Carter, 21, graduated top of her class from Oak Ridge High School in Lima, Ohio, winner of the State Youth Photography Contest 3 years running, accepted to the Rhode Island School of Design, but unable to attend due to financial constraints. He paused. "You undersold yourself yesterday. Your high school art teacher didn't just say you had an eye for composition. She wrote that you were the most naturally gifted photographer she'd encountered in 30 years of teaching." Emma sat frozen, unsure whether to be flattered or disturbed by the thoroughness of his investigation into her background. "Why would you go to such lengths to research me?" "I never make uninformed decisions, Miss Carter, especially about the people I bring into my organization." He gestured to the camera. "Your talent was being wasted. Now it won't be." Before Emma could formulate a response, Reed's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I need to take this. We'll continue our discussion later. For now, familiarize yourself with the camera. You'll be using it at the charity gala this weekend." "Charity gala?" Emma echoed. "Patricia has the details." Reed was already reaching for his phone, dismissal clear in his tone. Outside his office, Emma found Patricia waiting with an expectant look. "He told you about the gala?" Emma nodded, still clutching the camera box. "What exactly does he expect me to do?" "Document the event. It's the annual Reed Foundation fundraiser. Very exclusive, very important to Mr. Reed." Patricia handed her a thick folder. "All the information is in here, including the guest list and schedule. You'll need appropriate attire, of course." Emma glanced down at her simple black dress. "This won't do, will it?" Patricia's expression softened fractionally. The company has an account at Bergdorf's. I'll take you tomorrow to select something suitable. She glanced at the camera box. I see he gave you the equipment. Not surprising. What do you mean? Patricia hesitated, something unreadable flickering across her features. Mr. Reed has been different since you returned his wallet. More like his old self. His old self, Emma repeated, before Patricia stopped abruptly. It's not my place to discuss. Just know that your arrival has coincided with a positive change. Don't disappoint him. With that cryptic statement, Patricia returned to her desk, leaving Emma with more questions than answers. As the afternoon progressed and she settled into her new office, a strange feeling began to take root, that there was far more to Alexander Reed and to her sudden employment than a lost wallet and a test of integrity. The Reed Foundation annual charity gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Pierre overlooking Central Park. Emma arrived early, as instructed by Patricia, wearing a midnight blue gown from Bergdorf's that cost more than 6 months' rent at her apartment. The camera hung around her neck, its weight both unfamiliar and comforting after so many months without one. Patricia had briefed her extensively, emphasizing the importance of the event to Reed's philanthropic efforts. This year's focus was on medical research funding for rare diseases, with all proceeds going to a special research initiative. Emma couldn't help but think of her mother as she watched the wealthy guests arrive, dripping in jewels and designer clothing. How many of them truly understood the desperate need for such research? There you are. Alexander Reed's voice came from behind her. Emma turned to find him in an impeccable tuxedo, his usual stern expression slightly softened for the occasion. That color suits you. Thank you, Emma replied, feeling suddenly self-conscious. After 3 days working as his assistant, she was still adjusting to the rapid change in her circumstances. The ballroom looks beautiful, Reed nodded, his eyes scanning the room with characteristic efficiency. Are you comfortable with the camera settings? The lighting can be challenging in here. Yes, I've already adjusted for it. Emma had spent hours the previous evening reacquainting herself with photography techniques, determined not to disappoint. Good. Focus particularly on the interactions between donors and the research team. Those moments are valuable for future fundraising materials. Reed checked his watch. I need to greet some key supporters. Carry on. As he moved away, Emma began capturing the event through her lens, finding her rhythm quickly. It felt right to have a camera in her hands again, to see the world through that frame, seeking the perfect composition, the telling moment. She moved through the crowd discreetly, documenting the evening while remaining largely unnoticed. An hour into the event, as Emma was photographing a group of researchers explaining their work to potential donors, she overheard a conversation that made her pause. Reed's looking better tonight, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit commented to his companion. More like himself, not the automaton he's been since Sarah's death. 2 years now, isn't it? His companion replied. Tragic business. Never thought he'd recover, especially after... They moved out of earshot before Emma could hear more. Sarah, she recalled Patricia's cryptic comment about Reed being more like his old self recently. Was Sarah his wife? Had Reed been widowed? It would explain something about his demeanor, the way he seemed to hold himself apart from others. Later, as guests mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Emma found herself near a striking woman in her 50s who was speaking animatedly to Reed. Alexander, darling, the foundation is doing remarkable work. Sarah would be so proud. Reed's expression remained controlled, but Emma, watching through her camera lens, caught a flicker of pain in his eyes. Thank you, Eleanor. That means a great deal. And how are you, really? The woman pressed, laying a manicured hand on his arm. We worry, you know, especially after that dreadful business with Julia. I'm fine, Reed replied stiffly. Excuse me, I see the head of neurology trying to get my attention. As he walked away, Eleanor shook her head sadly. Still can't talk about it, she murmured to her companion. Poor Alex. First his wife, then betrayed by his fiancée and oldest friend in one blow. Emma lowered her camera, pieces starting to fall into place. Reed's comment about being disappointed by people he thought he could trust recently took on new meaning. A loss, followed by a betrayal. No wonder he'd resorted to testing people's honesty with a wallet full of cash. The evening progressed smoothly, with Reed giving a powerful speech about the Foundation's mission that raised millions in additional pledges. Emma continued documenting it all, increasingly aware of the glances and whispers that followed Reed through the room, a mixture of respect, pity, and curiosity. Near midnight, as the event was winding down, Emma found a quiet corner to review her photos. She was scrolling through them when she felt a presence beside her. "May I see?" Reed asked, his voice quieter than usual. Emma handed him the camera, watching as he examined her work with the same intensity he brought to everything. "These are exceptional," he said finally. "You have a genuine talent, Miss Carter." "Thank you." Emma hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "Mr. Reed, may I ask you something personal?" His expression immediately closed off. "That depends on the question. I've overheard things tonight about someone named Sarah and about a betrayal." She met his gaze directly. "Is that why you tested people with your wallet? Because you lost someone and then were betrayed by others you trusted?" Reed was silent for so long that Emma thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled but tight. "Sarah was my wife. She died of a rare autoimmune condition 2 years ago, the condition this foundation was created to research." He looked away toward the thinning crowd. 8 months ago I became engaged to Julia, my wife's oncologist. She was brilliant, compassionate, or so I thought. I discovered she and my CFO, my friend of 15 years, had been embezzling from the foundation, using funds meant for research to finance their affair and lavish lifestyle. Emma felt a cold wash of understanding. "I'm so sorry." The betrayal wasn't just personal. It set our research back significantly. Reed's jaw tightened. "After that, I found it difficult to trust anyone's motivations, hence the wallet test." Emma thought about the dozens of people who had supposedly failed that test before her. "And if I hadn't returned it? If I'd kept the money? Then you wouldn't be here." Reed's gaze returned to her, analytical as ever. "But you did return it. And then you did something even more unexpected. You walked away from my job offer because you disapproved of my methods. That told me even more about your character than returning the wallet. Yet you still hired me. Because honesty and integrity are rare, Ms. Carter. But honesty, integrity, and the courage to stand by one's principles even at personal cost, that's exceptional." For the first time that evening, Reed smiled genuinely. "The foundation needs people like you. I need people like you." The personal admission surprised Emma. Over the past few days, she'd seen Reed as brilliant, demanding, and meticulously controlled, but never vulnerable. "The foundation is important to you because of Sarah," she said softly. "That's why tonight matters so much." Reed nodded. "Before she died, I promised her I would help ensure no one else suffered as she did, that her death would have meaning. It's a beautiful way to honor her memory." Something in Reed's expression shifted, a softening around the eyes. "You remind me of her sometimes. The same directness, the same unwillingness to be intimidated by status or wealth." Emma wasn't sure how to respond to such an unexpected comparison. Before she could formulate a reply, Patricia appeared at Reed's elbow. "Alexander, the Goldsteins are leaving and want to say goodbye." Reed nodded. "Excuse me, Miss Carter." He paused, then added, "We'll continue this conversation another time." As weeks passed, Emma settled into her role at Reed Innovations. The job was demanding but fulfilling, and true to his word, Reed ensured she had opportunities to pursue her photography. Her first paycheck allowed her to move her mother to New York for better treatment at a specialized clinic funded by the Reed Foundation. She learned more about Reed too, his brilliant mind, his exacting standards, but also his deep loyalty to those who earned his trust. Gradually, the stern billionaire became simply Alexander, a complicated man still healing from profound loss and betrayal. 6 months after finding his wallet, Emma sat in his office, reviewing plans for an upcoming foundation event. They had fallen into a comfortable working rhythm, her straightforward nature complementing his analytical approach. "Emma," he said suddenly, setting aside the documents they'd been discussing. "I've been meaning to tell you something." She looked up, surprised by his serious tone. "What is it?" "The wallet wasn't entirely a test." He met her gaze directly. "It was also an experiment in fate." "I don't understand." "After Julia's betrayal, I lost faith not just in people, but in the idea that anything good could come into my life again." Reed's expression was uncharacteristically open. "The day I left that wallet, I told myself that if someone returned it intact, perhaps there was still reason to hope." Emma felt a strange flutter in her chest. "And did finding me restore your hope?" "More than that," he replied quietly. "It changed everything." The admission hung between them, weighted with possibility. Emma thought of the path that had led her here, from desperate poverty to financial security, from abandoned dreams to renewed purpose, all because she'd picked up a wallet on a rainy Manhattan morning. "I'm glad I found it," she said simply. Though I still don't approve of your methods, Reed laughed, the sound no longer rare in her presence. You never fail to keep me honest, Emma Carter. His expression grew serious again. I've been thinking about the Foundation's future. With your eye for capturing human stories, you could do more than just document events. You could help show the world the faces behind the research, the real people whose lives are changed. A more permanent role with the Foundation? Emma asked, intrigued by the possibility. If you're interested. Your salary would increase accordingly, of course. Emma considered the offer. In 6 short months her life had transformed completely. Her mother was improving under the specialized care. Emma herself had rediscovered her passion for photography and found unexpected fulfillment in her work with Reed. And then there was Alexander himself. The stern, closed-off man she'd met that first day had gradually revealed deeper layers. His pain, his commitment, his capacity for generosity. Something had grown between them, something neither had anticipated. I'd like that very much, she said finally, on one condition. Reed raised an eyebrow, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. And what would that be, Ms. Carter? That you never test me again. No more lost wallets, no more experiments in fate. Emma held his gaze steadily. Just honesty between us, always. I believe I can agree to those terms. Reed extended his hand across the desk. Partners, then. Emma took his hand, feeling the warmth of his grasp. Partners. As their hands remained joined a moment longer than necessary, Emma realized that the wallet had indeed been a test, but not just of her integrity. It had been a test of possibility, of whether life could offer second chances to both of them, a test they had both, in their own ways, passed.